There is no struggle without sacrifices. It's not possible. So if one of us dies, that's part of the story. The struggle goes on. For me, I am a freedom fighter. A freedom fighter never mourns. A freedom fighter gets infuriated when he loses a colleague. And I feel infuriated. I don't feel dejected. I don't feel self-pitying. When I heard that Samuel had died in the circumstances in which he died, my reaction was one of fury, of anger. This should be the reaction of freedom fighters. There is no struggle without sacrifices. It's not possible.
Welcome to Bole International Airport, Addis Ababa. Today we are at the airport to wait for heads of state and governments of the preferential trade area who are assembling here for another meeting of the PTA beginning the 2nd to the 4th of December 1986. The Ugandan presidential jet bringing President Yoweri Museveni to Addis Ababa. President Yoweri Museveni at Bole International Airport, welcomed by Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam, President of Ethiopia. President is presented with a bouquet of flowers at the airport. President meeting the high-ranking government officials of Ethiopia. And ministers were here earlier to discuss matters in the preferential trade area. Another bouquet of flowers from the Ugandan community in Addis Ababa. And these are members of the Uganda community in Addis Ababa meeting the president. They include members of the Uganda embassy in Addis Ababa. President is on the dais for a presidential salute. Parade commander of the Ethiopian army coming to invite President Museveni with his host to inspect guards mounted by the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam now escorts President Museveni to his limousine. President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda. Welcomed by the OAU Secretary General Idi Omaro, PTA Secretary General Bax Nomvete into Africa Hall.
Comrade Chairman, fellow heads of state and government, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second time this year that we, heads of state and government of PTA member states, have met. The first time was in Bujumbura, Burundi, on the occasion of the first extraordinary PTA summit in May. It is also the second time that we meet here in Addis Ababa as heads of state and government of African states. The first was when we met here on the occasion of the OAU summit meeting in July. This shows that 1986 has afforded us plenty of opportunity to meet and discuss matters of mutual interest. This is welcome indeed. From the outset, allow me, Comrade Chairman, to congratulate you on your most deserved election to the post of leadership of our region. It is a well-known fact that your support for peace, unity, and friendship in Africa is unflinching. It is also a fact that Addis Ababa in particular and Ethiopia in general are well known for their very warm welcome and hospitality to visitors, especially those who come here in quest for African unity. May I therefore register my personal gratitude and that of my delegation to you, Comrade Chairman, to the Workers' Party of Ethiopia, to the government and to the people of Ethiopia for the welcome and hospitality you have accorded us. Allow me, Comrade Chairman, to restate that the spirit embodied in the PTA could not have dawned at a better time than it did. We had just gone through more than 2 decades of the United Nations sponsored development decades, and yet our economic plight had continued to degenerate. This is because the strategies that we followed focused at issues which sought to maintain our economies as neo-colonial appendages. We have continued to play the traditional role of supplying raw materials, most of which have less use value within our economies. What is even disheartening is we are being told by the World Bank that the terms of trade of these very raw materials will continue to decline between 1985 and 1999. This implies that our ability to meet our import demands from developed countries will increasingly become hard, if not impossible. We can, however, overcome this by carrying out fundamental changes within our economic structures. This will require us to restructure our productive activities to serve our needs. Indeed, the PTA offers us great opportunities for realizing this structural transformation given our past history. It should be remembered that the fragmentation of Africa into tiny economical and viable states by imperial powers and the subsequent economic distortion whereby we were made to produce for external demand to the neglect of our own internal demand has not only made us poor but also seem helpless. In spite of the smallness of our internal markets, some of our policies have also tended to be egoistic and contribute to the problem. By coming together as a group of countries within our region, we should be in a position to tackle the problems of poverty, sectarianism, and narrow nationalism. As a group, the PTA is endowed with a wide variety of natural resources, which could be, as they said once in their documents. This state of affairs should change. From the deliberations of the last 2 days, it is evident that PTA is making a determined effort to develop our region as an integrated economic unit. This effort must succeed because if it does not, our political independence cannot be sustained. Let us produce for each other. Let us avoid petty competition, which is sometimes engineered from outside our region. Progress of one of us should be progress of all of us. The resolve which we have exhibited in these 2 days augurs well for our economic development. We should jealously protect and guard this economic development. I should point out, however, that any type of development requires a stable environment. Therefore, let every one of us strive to maintain stability within the region, because instability in one country retards or even disrupts progress for all of us. Comrade Chairman, let me add my voice to those of my colleagues who have already referred to the tragic death of Comrade Samora Machel. I must point out the death of our dear brother Machel, tragic as it is, will not change the course of history. For me, I am a freedom fighter. A freedom fighter never mourns when he loses. A freedom fighter gets infuriated when he loses a colleague. And I feel infuriated. I don't feel dejected. I don't feel self-pitying. When I heard that Samora had died in the circumstances in which he died, my reaction was one of fury, of anger. This should be the reaction of freedom fighters. There is no struggle without sacrifices. It's not possible. So if one of us dies, that's part of the story. The struggle goes on. So the death of Comrade Samora, tragic though it is, will not change the course of history. Indeed, freedom itself provides a vivid example of this. As I have said before in other forums, in 1969, Comrade Eduardo Mondlane was murdered in the hope that the Mozambican struggle would be arrested. 6 years later, however, Mozambique was liberated. Eduardo Mondlane was the first president of Frelimo. In the same vein, America Cabral was murdered in Guinea by the Portuguese secret police, but soon after, Guinea-Bissau. Also, the murder of Herbert Kitepo did not stop the people of Zimbabwe from achieving their independence. These examples clearly show that resorting to such moribund tactics can never deter the forces of liberation struggle. People think they can change the course of history. And we have seen very many examples in the last century. In Europe, there was a man called Metternich. Metternich was the Chancellor of Austria-Hungary. He was a feudalist. He thought he would stop the spread of capitalism and republicanism. And he formed what they called the Holy Alliance. So wherever there was a Republican movement, he would intervene. In Spain, in wherever. But as of now, even the kings who survived in Europe are actually Republicans. They are no longer feudal as they were in the past. You cannot change the course of history. So the South Africans are just wasting their time. And they are adding to their criminality. Coming to South Africa, I should point out that people of South Africa are waging a heroic but an isolated struggle. They are isolated because we have not been in a position to give them enough arms. This is a weakness that we must resolve. The arrogance of South Africa is based on the fact that we have not fully mobilized our resources and coordinated them in the common struggle against apartheid. We all saw the defeat of the American army in Vietnam. I normally hear analysis about South African might. South Africa is the biggest military power on the African continent. That's what these analysts say. And indeed it is. But that's exactly what Mao Zedong said. Mao Zedong said, imperialists and reactionaries are paper tigers in the long run. Although in the short run they are actual tigers. In the short run they kill, they murder, but in the long run they are paper tigers. Because they have got internal weaknesses which can never allow them to succeed. The Americans and their Vietnamese puppets had about 2 million men equipped with the most modern weapons of the day. This, however, did not stop them from being defeated. In we have a saying which can be interpreted to the effect that when brothers eat together, that is the food that goes well. Accordingly, Comrade Chairman, fellow heads of state and government, distinguished delegates, have the greatest pleasure in inviting you to our capital, Kampala, for the next PTA summit meeting. This invitation is, of course, extended to all meetings of the PTA organs which precede the PTA summit meeting. Thank you very much.
President, seen off by staff of Uganda Embassy, of the OAU and Economic Commission of Africa, high-ranking government officials of Ethiopia, the Preferential Trade Area Secretary General, Bax Nomvete.